Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take the sources you send us, could be articles, notes, audio clips, and we really dig in to pull out the key bits of information. Basically, a shortcut to getting up to speed. Today, we're tackling something that's definitely, well, sparked a lot of talk over the years. These claims of unusual activities at the World Trade Center, specifically before 9/11. We've got an audio excerpt, some notes you provided, and our job is to really walk through what these sources are actually claiming happened.
Exactly. And just to be clear, our goal here isn't to endorse any particular view, but to really lay out the information from these specific sources. We want you to understand the narrative they present, so you can think critically about it.
Okay, let's get into it. So the main voice in this, a primary eyewitness account, comes from a guy named Scott.
Right. Scott worked for Fiduciary Trust. That's a big financial company.
And he was based in the South Tower.
Yeah, way up high 97th floor. That's where their data center was, a really critical spot. He was there working right up until the week of 9/11.
Okay, so he had firsthand experience inside the building. What's the first major point the sources bring up from his account?
Well, it's this thing Scott called an unprecedented power down. This apparently happened about 3 weeks before 9/11.
Unprecedented how? Like a blackout.
More than just a flicker.
Yeah.
It was a complete power loss, but only for the top half, roughly, of the South Tower. Floors, say, 50 and up.
Wow.
Yeah, and for the banks and financial firms up there, like Scott's, no power means no systems, everything down. He described it as truly extraordinary.
I bet people must have been scrambling.
Totally. The source says employees were rushing to get their systems secured before everything went dark.
And when exactly did this happen?
He pinpoints it to the weekend right before 9/11, so Saturday, September 8th, and Sunday, September 9th.
That close to the event.
And Scott, apparently he'd worked in the towers since 98. He and his colleagues who'd been there even longer, they couldn't remember anything like it. A full power down like that for just part of the tower.
Except maybe the 93 bombing.
Right. That was the only other major disruption they could recall. But this was different, seemingly planned.
Okay, so you have this major power down, systems off, right before 9/11. Were there, maintenance crews around? What did Scott observe during that weekend?
He did mention seeing workers, guys in overalls. But, initially he didn't think much of it.
Seemed normal, part of the process.
Exactly. Just seemed like what you'd expect during a big maintenance event or power shutdown. It was only later, looking back after 9/11, that the source says he started to view it differently.
How so?
Well, his perspective shifted dramatically, according to the source. After the attacks, looking back at that weekend, those workers, the whole power down, it all became highly suspicious to him.
Right, context changes everything. So if he felt it was suspicious later, did he? Did he try to tell anyone?
He did. That's a key part of the account in our source material. He apparently tried really hard to share this information.
Who did he contact?
He tried reaching out to the Port Authority who ran the WTC and also the official 9/11 Commission.
And did they take a statement?
According to the source, no. He got no acknowledgement, nothing back, despite apparently calling repeatedly, writing letters. Just silence.
No acknowledgement at all.
That's what the source claims. Scott apparently felt like the information was being treated as if it was, of no interest to anyone.
But to him, it felt important.
Absolutely. He felt it was part of the puzzle, as the source puts it. This lack of interest from the authorities only seemed to deepen his suspicion, I suppose.
Okay, so that's the power down story and the attempt to report it. But you mentioned he wasn't actually in the tower on 9/11 itself?
Correct. He'd worked that weekend, the 8th and 9th, during the power down, so he actually had Tuesday, September 11th off.
Lucky coincidence. Where was he?
He lived across the river in Jersey City, so he had a direct, pretty clear view of the Twin Towers.
Oh, wow. So he saw the collapse.
He saw the South Tower collapse, yes. And his description, as relayed in the source, is quite stark.
What did he say?
He called it highly suspicious, said, it just didn't look correct. And then, more pointedly, it looked like a controlled demolition.
A controlled demolition.
That was his impression from his vantage point. The source quotes him saying, it did not look like a building collapsing either from an aircraft hitting it or from a fire inside. It seemed to crumble into dust. It just didn't ring true.
Crumble into dust. That's quite a description from an eyewitness.
It is, and it leads into some of the broader claims that are present in the source material we reviewed beyond just Scott's specific account.
Okay, so let's widen the lens a bit. What other points do these sources make about the collapses themselves?
Well, the source material asserts pretty directly that all 3 WTC collapses, meaning Towers 1 and 2, and Building 7 later that day were pretty close to classic examples of what they call controlled demolition.
And how does the source define that? What makes it classic?
It describes controlled demolition as involving explosives placed at key structural points, timed by computer, designed to make the building fall straight down, basically into its own footprint, at something close to virtually free fall speed. The source implies the way the towers came down fits this description.
Free fall seek.
Yeah, very rapid, symmetrical collapse. And the source also adds this detail, claiming that footage showing the collapses was apparently aired widely on TV the first night, but that you don't really see that same footage anymore.
Is there any other context given for that controlled demolition claim?
The source includes an alleged quote attributed to the news anchor Dan Rather, supposedly from that day, saying something like, "Boy, that looks just like controlled demolition." Though, the context or verification of that quote isn't detailed in our material.
Okay, so that's the claim about the nature of the collapses. What else? You mentioned something about security earlier?
Yes, another significant point raised in the source's concerns: who is handling security at the World Trade Center complex before 9/11?
What about it?
The source states, quite pointedly, that the official 9/11 Commission report does not tell you something specific.
Which is?
That Marvin Bush, who was the president's brother at the time, and a relative, Walker III, described as their cousin, that they were principals in the company responsible for security at the World Trade Center.
Really? The president's brother involved in WTC security?
That's the claim made in the source material, yes. It presents this connection as one of all sorts of coincidences surrounding the event.
Okay. Any other unusual pre-9/11 activity mentioned?
There's also a more general mention in the source material about reports of a kind of shutdown order for the WTC in the days leading up.
A shutdown order, like closed to workers?
Yeah, the source references accounts from people who supposedly worked there saying they couldn't get into the buildings for maybe 3 days before the attacks. And during that time, there were allegedly engineers coming in and out.
Engineers,
Yeah.
during a time when regular workers were apparently locked out.
That's the picture painted by this part of the source material. It suggests a period of unusual restricted access combined with specialized activities shortly before the event, adding to that pattern Scott's account started.
So it seems the sources are layering these different pieces, the power down, the dismissed eyewitness, the collapse observations, the security connection, the shutdown reports to build a case for something, well, non-standard happening.
It definitely presents a narrative that questions the commonly accepted sequence of events, yes, highlighting anomalies and coincidences.
Right. So let's just recap quickly. We've covered Scott's firsthand account, the big power down just before 9/11, seeing workers, his later suspicions, and importantly, his claim that authorities showed no interest when he tried to report it.
And his direct observation of the South Tower collapse, which he described as looking like a controlled demolition.
Then we touched on the broader claims from the source material, the idea that all three collapses resembled controlled demolitions, the alleged Dan Rather, quote, the information about Marvin Bush and WTC security.
And those general reports about a pre-9/11 shutdown and engineers being present.
Quite a collection of points presented in these sources.
It is. And as we said at the start, the value here is understanding what these sources are putting forward. Having these specific claims and accounts laid out allows you to engage with them, evaluate them, and, see how they fit or don't fit with other information you might have.
Absolutely. So here's something to think about as we wrap up this deep dive. Given these specific claims, we've unpacked the unprecedented power down weeks before, the eyewitness account of the collapse looking like a demolition, the reported lack of official interest in that information, the security connections mentioned. What questions does hearing about these specific points from this source material raise for you personally? How might it influence or challenge or even just add nuance to your understanding of the events surrounding 9/11 and the official narratives? Definitely something to mull over.